right, welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of the Monty and Murdy College Football Show. Thank y'all for tuning in with us. As always, we are thrilled to have you in, and it is an exciting, I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the way. It is an exciting rivalry week. Monty, what's up, dude?
Rivalry week.
It's tough, dude. It's tough.
It's hard for me too, man. I am excited. I am heartbroken. Heartbroken. Week 14 of the college football season. As I said it in the recap episode, I'll say it again, man. It just went by way too fast, as they all do.
Too fast.
But no, man, I'm excited. Rivalry week. Got a bunch of matchups to talk about.
Tons.
I say a bunch, but nothing, nothing too crazy compared to what we normally talk about. Just like I said in the recap, towards the end of the recap episode last time, man, I just got a lot of notes, a lot of things to talk about when it comes to these matchups that we're talking about. But it should all be good stuff. Excited to hear the feedback from all the folks out there listening and or watching the podcast. So hopefully people can take a listen to these notes and get some good civil discourse.
Yeah, we're always about the civil discourse. It's what we're all passionate about, right? Everybody has an opinion on this stuff. Who's the win? Who's the better team? And it's going to be up to us to figure it out right here. So just stay tuned, locked in. We'll tell you what it is, and we'll get to the bottom of it.
And again, before we do get into these matchups, we did not share notes at all. So I don't know who he's picking. He definitely doesn't know who I'm picking. I have a feeling we're probably agreeing on the majority of these based on what I'm looking at, but there might be one or two that we'll probably disagree on. Maybe three. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So we're going to start it off right here. Number 4, Georgia. Number 23, Georgia Tech. We just talked about Georgia Tech on the recap episode. This should be Georgia at Georgia Tech, correct?
Yeah, it's in Atlanta, but I believe it's in the Georgia Dome excuse me, is it Mercedes-Benz?
Mercedes-Benz.
Yeah. It's in Atlanta. It's in Atlanta. Georgia Tech is the home team, and Georgia Tech does hail from Georgia. Atlanta.
So we have seen Georgia Tech get exposed in recent weeks, right? They were what, 8-0 at one point. They're now 9-2. The 9-2 doesn't feel as comfortable because it was a 1-point win over Boston College. They've played some of their at least worst ball as they've kind of come through the November part of the season. And then we got Georgia on the other side. They're rounding into form, right? Every time we've seen Georgia, they've gotten a little bit better from the early matchup with Alabama, where Alabama ended up getting the best of them. As this Georgia team, we've seen them face off against Tennessee. We saw what they did to Texas in the dominant 38-10 win. And now we got a matchup.
35-10.
Was it 35-10? Sorry, my bad. 35-10.
Gotcha.
Now we're matching up here against Georgia Tech. And I don't want to steal your thunder. You got a line for it, so I'll just continue to move on. What I want to see, what this one for Georgia Tech, I want to see can they do here. I think they got to make it a fourth quarter game. You're going to have to keep this in a one-score game. You're going to need your defense to step up and play much better than what they have over the past 3 weeks. Because what you basically want to factor in for Georgia Tech here is, hey, we're going to want to give Haynes King a shot to go win us the football game. He's been our best player without a doubt, probably the past 2 seasons. And we're going to rely on him to go win us this football game. So that's the kind of game you want to see is you want to go tit for tat for Georgia. Georgia's going to get theirs, right? They're probably the more talented football team, probably the better on the offensive and defensive lines. So if you're Georgia Tech, you're going to need a couple of breaks to go your way. Sometimes the ball falls the way the ball falls. You're going to need to fall towards you here, and you're going to want a late fourth quarter game where you give your quarterback, Haynes King, an opportunity to go win this football game and save whatever possible chance you may have at the playoffs, be able to save that and win that for your team.
Yeah. I mean, for Georgia Tech, play keep away, right? That's kind of the main option you got for this game. I mean, based on how they've looked. I mentioned in the recap episode, you did as well. I'll mention it here again. What I don't like with this matchup is, yeah, Georgia Tech's kind of been trending downwards. Meanwhile, Georgia's literally the opposite. They're going upwards. They're kind of peaking at the right time, right? It's just, yeah, I'm less confident in Georgia Tech winning this game. My thing is with Georgia, Gunnar Stockton, he looks like he's kind of really come into his own.
I think he's about to go off in this game.
That's what I'm concerned about too.
Yeah.
So with last year's overtime game with Georgia Tech and Georgia Tech's defense was far better last year than it is this year. At least in comparison to matching up with Georgia.
Right.
At the same time, it is a rivalry game. It is Haynes King. He does typically elevate his play more so in these kinds of games. But my big difference maker is Gunnar Stockton. He's shown multiple times this year that if it comes down to a shootout, he can win a shootout. He did it twice, once against Tennessee, the other time against a very, very good a playoff team, Ole Miss team. So I think my big difference is, like, if Kirby Smart needs Gunnar Stockton to go do it, if he needs a run game, which is also coming into form, to go do it, they'll go do it. I just think Georgia at this moment, like I said, never know. Rivalry week, rivalry game.
There it is.
Haynes King. I think I'm getting the hang of it. Haynes King. You never know that, but we got to predict these games. I'm going with Georgia. I think that if it does come down to a shootout, which I don't think it will, but if it does, I'm trusting Gunnar Stockton over Haynes King when it comes to airing it out.
Yeah, if that's the kind of game it boils down to, this Georgia team has kind of shown throughout this season, unlike previous Georgia teams, they're comfortable playing in that realm. Like, if you want to get in a shootout, they're more than comfortable saying, "Hey, let's do it." We'll go deep ball for deep ball. We got we got playmakers in Zion Branch, Gunnar Stockton's slinging the rock all over the place. So we're comfortable living in that space, just because they've kind of had to adopt that spirit, because they're not as good on the defensive side of the ball as Georgia teams have been in the past under Kirby Smart.
Right, and that's my only main concern with this game is if Georgia Tech is able to play keep away, because Brent Key, with how good of a coach he is and how much he trusts Haynes King, and when it comes to this game, most likely, even if they were to win this game, most likely Georgia Tech only has one game left after this. So you can play all your cards, right? You can let Haynes King run for 200 plus yards, right? You're probably not. I mean, Brent Key probably wouldn't admit it, nor would any of the players, but they know they're most likely not going to be in the playoffs, right? So you haven't beaten Georgia in God knows how long. I probably should have looked that up prior to this episode, but they're going to want to go win this game. And so that's my only, like, if Georgia Tech is in it late, which, as you said, actually, I think I made a note of that too. You don't want to get into a late fourth quarter game with Haynes King at the helm. If it came down to that, I'd be a little bit more concerned with Georgia, but I still think based on Georgia's track record this year, when it does get to those late games, Gunnar Stockton also rises to the occasion. So my mind just keeps always going back to Georgia winning this one.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see it any other way. Georgia's a 13.5-point favorite. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier in this one. They're a 13.5-point favorite in this one. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Georgia here. I think we just got two different teams on two different trajectories. And ultimately, it's just whenever I got to look at what are both of these teams? What have they shown me? And more specifically, what have they shown me within the past month? I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who's not going to pick Georgia to win this game. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to cover, but because, like we said, that the path to victory for Georgia Tech is to get in one of those late fourth quarter games. You're not just going to go in here and blow out Georgia. You need to get in one of those late fourth quarter games. Hopefully, get the ball last, and give Haynes King a shot. But like I said, got to go with Georgia. I'm going to join you on that pick.
So there you have it. We're both taking Georgia in the Georgia Tech rivalry. I don't know the name behind that one, so maybe we can figure that out. Moving on to this one, second year revived rivalry. I like this one a lot. Some would say, not me, but some would say that this is the biggest rivalry in college sports. Like I
No, it's
said,
not.
don't come at me. Hey, see, don't come at me. I said I would not say it. But we got Texas A&M fighting Aggies going to Austin, Texas to play the Texas Longhorns. This one is in Austin, which is a factor for me. You know, well, based on how I've picked throughout the season, I think people could go back and listen to our episodes and know that I really do value home field advantage. But this one was a tougher one for me to pick. Mainly because you kind of see how Arch Manning is sort of coming into his own throwing the football this last week. And I know you can say it's Arkansas, so you take it with a grain of salt, but he threw for 389 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's, yes, it's Arkansas's defense. They're pretty freaking bad this year, but it's still an SEC team. You still got to go out there and play and make the throws, right? So looks like Arch is kind of finding his own. With that being said, and more to Arch's power, A&M has some questions still going on in the defensive backfield. They have a very good defense, but their weaknesses are in the defensive backfield. They certainly are not elite in the defensive backfield. But with that being said, my mind goes back to the Florida game, the Texas-Florida game, right? So Florida's no, elite team, obviously, when it comes to defensive backfield play. But what was Florida able to do to Texas's O-line? They were able to pressure Arch Manning, and you saw Florida was able to come out with that one. So my thing is the A&M pass rush, with that being in fact elite, and the Texas O-line being pretty much the opposite. They've done a little bit better recently, but still Texas O-line has struggled, or at least with inconsistency throughout this year. So can A&M get to Arch is my question. And with Texas O-line having struggled, it has correlated to Arch not being able to throw like he has been recently. And like I said, I made a note. I said, see Florida game. The only real way I see Texas winning this game is if they absolutely stonewall the A&M run game. They've had a pretty good run defense throughout the year, Texas has. But my only thing is Texas really hasn't been able to stonewall run game when it comes to playing comparable opponents. So I'm taking A&M. I know they are on the road. I know I did say that I like the home field advantage aspect of games a lot more than maybe I probably should, but this one I'm taking the away team. Give me the Aggies.
Yeah, that one is man, yeah, you said it's probably one of your toughest picks. I will agree with you and kind of second that. It's a very tough pick for me. I've flipped it 2 times just while you were going through there, as we were kind of going back and forth because you make me think about different
I
stuff.
made some good points, I guess.
You made some good points for both sides, right? We have seen Arch Manning play better as we got into through the end part of the year. But we've also seen A&M struggle with teams that they probably shouldn't have, right? We saw South Carolina give A&M just about everything A&M wanted. And that was just
exactly why this is a tough one for me to pick.
Yeah, we're not, it's not like, that's early in the season. It's like, no, that was 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago.
I did consider that, but my thing is when you really look down at the whole, obviously, yes, it's late in the season. Teams are much different than the beginning of the season, but when you look at the whole season, clearly that South Carolina game in the first half, which, yeah, obviously they ended up winning that game. That game, though, is an outlier to this season. So
Correct.
That was kind of what I was thinking about.
Yeah, and then you have you look at them and you break them down. You're like, hey, let's look at their common opponents. Who have they both played? And they both played Arkansas, and they both played Arkansas kind of tight. A&M beat Arkansas 45-42. Texas beat Arkansas 52-37 here recently. But then you're also like, okay, but what was Texas just before they just beat Arkansas? Oh, well, I just watched them only be able to put up 10 points against Georgia is what I just saw from this Texas team. So there's a lot of this one. I think it's going to be one of those games where the swings and the momentum are going to kind of go back and forth. There's going to be opportunities for both of them to capture that momentum. And I also think about this one from how do you say this? An odds perspective, right? I mentioned it in like a previous 3-4 week episode. probably 3-4 weeks ago, where it's like I have trouble picking undefeated teams over and over and over again because it's like I'm like eventually college football is going to college football for this team. We don't see too many of those undefeated teams make it all the way to the end. So you're just kind of wondering when is that domino going to fall? Is it going to be this week? Is it going to be this week?
Yeah, but
So
you're gonna have at least one, probably two, probably three going
going
after
into the
this
playoff, yeah,
week.
absolutely, yeah, going into the playoff. Um, Texas still
We're
within,
going into comp champ week, but
yeah, Texas. Who would you say that this week is more important for, Texas or A&M? Let's pose that question.
ask it again.
Who is this week more important for, Texas or A&M? Winning this game, who is it more important for? Who has more riding on this game?
Well, it depends on who you ask, right? And with this being the rivalry that it is and was back in the day, A&M fans would probably say, "Well, of course it's big. It's big for us, bigger for us." But when it comes to, like, if you were to ask a Texas fan, and it riding on possibly the future of the remainder of the season, Texas would say that it's more important to them. So it really depends on who you ask. You're asking me, so I would say it's probably. I don't have any stake in this rivalry, so I'd say it's probably bigger for Texas.
Yeah.
Just for the future of the rest of their season, right? Like, they still believe. I don't think any of the 3 lost teams will make the playoff, but for them, they believe that there's still a chance, and this is their only chance into the playoff. At least they'll probably get considered if they win this game, especially if they win it dominantly, which I don't see happening, but crazier things have happened. And will continue to happen. So yeah, I mean, I would say that this is probably a bigger game for Texas, even though A&M hasn't beaten them. And obviously last year A&M went 8-4 and Texas was in the playoff, but they played them relatively close. It was kind of a defensive game, but yeah, A&M fans are probably like, well, of course it's bigger for us. But A&M, they're already in the it's almost guaranteed.
They're in the dance.
They're in the dance for sure, but they're almost guaranteed to be in Atlanta anyways. So
yeah,
they're like, well, they're going. Right.
So, with that being said, have you made your pick yet?
Yeah, I said I'm taking the Aggies.
Going with the Aggies. I'm going to go the other side of it. I'm going to go with the Shorthorns.
Dang.
Tough.
Wow. Look at that look at that sitting over his head, and he's taking it, man. Your ancestors rolling over in their grave.
No. They are. Now, personally, rooting interest. Wouldn't mind seeing A&M win this one. I think A&M has a really good chance for them. But going into this podcast, my pick was A&M. A&M is a 2.5-point favorite, so they're getting 2.5 with Texas's home spread, so they're like a 4.5-point favorite. I have seen Arch progress. He's gotten better and better throughout this season. I think A&M, as you pointed out, they do have some weaknesses in the secondary that Texas may be able to exploit. And I think just this being at home and just what's riding on this game, obviously Texas going 8-4.
Taking a page out of my book with the home field advantage.
Going with the home field advantage, man. And I just don't know if what we saw against Georgia was a complete story about how this Texas team is, but I have seen A&M as they've come down the stretch. They have been, at least if you compare their full years, the A&M team has been the more complete team throughout it, but you've seen, especially when they match up against really good teams on the offensive side of the ball, that they do tend to get in shootouts. You saw it in the Notre Dame game. You saw it in the Arkansas game. So there's plays there to be made. So with that being said, I got to go with the Shorthorns here and them to get a win and make the SEC and the playoff picture just that much more interesting on the bubble teams there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like I said, I pick A&M. My big thing is mainly because of that defensive line versus that O-line matchup. But I go back to what I first said when I started to talk about this game. This is one of the tougher ones for me to pick. It in part because it is in Austin, and it is and how Arch has been playing. And how Sark seemingly has found kind of the mold for Arch in this offense, at least for this year. So like I said, not a feel good pick for me. A lot of these aren't. Actually, the majority, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The majority of these games I don't feel good about my picks, but you got to pick somebody, right? And it's just kind of where my mind is. And like I said, my big matchup is that O-line versus D-line thing, the trenches, if you will. And that's why I'm going to go with A&M.
Yeah. So we're splitting there. We were on the same page. I will tell you, we were on the same page coming into that one. That's just a really tough pick, and you're kind of, it just depends on which one you feel more
That's
solid
what you
about.
want, though. That's
Right.
what you want for rivalry week, is these big games being 50-50.
Now let's talk about one. If you are on the other side of this one, I don't know. I'm gonna have to start questioning you a little bit. We're diving into the OU LSU game. LSU coming to Norman, and doesn't look like Garrett Nussmeier is going to be able to play. Listed as doubtful on the injury chart. For those of y'all who don't know, that's LSU's starting quarterback. Played really well for him last year. Hasn't been as good this year. So when you think about, hey, what are these two teams? What are these two teams good at? LSU, they're good on the defensive side of the ball. That's kind of been their strength all year. Offensive side of the ball, they haven't been very good throwing the ball. They got a lot of pass catchers that are injured, skill position players that are injured, and they haven't been good running the ball. Well, that's a tough day matchup against the OU defense, right? We got John Batir who's coming back healthy. For this one, man, it kind of boils down to it. This might be a hot take. Go ahead, clip this, Josh. Go ahead, clip this when you're editing it. I find it hard to believe LSU's going to score more than 3. I'm saying OU keeps them within under 3.
It's funny that you say that, but I'll let you finish.
Funny that I say that. LSU just got in a slugfest with WKU before this one. OU obviously coming off their ranked game stretch of playing Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, Missouri, and then coming to this one with the playoff spot on the line. Everything for OU in this one. Now, LSU would probably love to play upset pick here, but LSU's without, Brian Kelly got fired this year. There's a kind of a lot of suspense debating whether or not Lane Kiffin's going to come in. There's a lot kind of surrounding that program. I think it's just tough for me to think that they're going to, hey, we're locked in. We still want to play upset. I think you got a lot of players who are maybe already eyeing the portal on that one, started quarterback out. So yeah, with that one, I got to go. The factors for me line up. This is probably the one I'm most confident in this week. I'm going with OU to get the win over LSU here.
So because of everything you said, this is the first time I've ever done this. I'm going to do it, though. I'm going to read my notes. I have 4 of them verbatim.
All right.
Verbatim, word for word.
Word for word.
With LSU's focus each week now being on whether they get Kiffin or not, I think they'll be distracted. I do trust LSU's defense to keep it a low-scoring game since OU's offense hasn't looked crazy impressive. However, I'm going to continue to trust OU's defense and Venables' play calling more. I think OU's offense and Mateer's legs do enough, and that OU defense shuts down LSU, holds them to 0 points.
Wow. See, just for a reminder, y'all, we do not share notes. We do not share notes.
That's why I was like, it's crazy that you said that, but I let you finish. But I've just read those, the 4 notes. Yeah. I can take a picture of these exact notes and send them to you if you don't believe me. But those are my exact notes for that game.
Yeah. So we both kind of have the same feeling of it. I think John Batir is going to be able to make enough plays here. I think he's going to continue to get healthy. OU running game, I think they were figuring stuff out. Xavier Robinson played last week against Missouri on a sprained knee. He's really the only running back even got reps. That's a whole nother topic, but we'll save that for off-season discussion. But yeah, X hopefully a little better on the knee this week, maybe able to get some running yards. Home crowd. They finally figured out the fourth quarter song. It seems to be, at least. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't.
So yeah, OU, they've had the little mantra. They showed it after the Alabama game. I don't know if you watched all the post-game stuff with the hard to kill. So OU struggled, for those of you who don't know. SEC tradition is like you have like a fourth quarter song. It plays in every fourth quarter. You play. Last year was kind of, they did Toby Keith thing just because of Toby Keith's passing for OU. As he was obviously a big booster and that sort of deal affiliated with the program. this year they've struggled to kind of find that fourth quarter song just because OU didn't have that tradition before they came into the SEC. So it seems to be, at least for the players' sake, they've settled on one. It's Many Men by 50 Cent is what is playing in the fourth quarter. But
it's pretty integrity.
Yeah. Pretty interesting choice to say the least, but hey, if the players like it, gets stadium juiced, I don't care what we play. Just give me something that gets everybody pumped up. And please do not play We Will Rock You. I was there for that game. I think that was the Auburn game. They tried We Will Rock You. Please don't. Many Men, hey, I'm cool with it. I know you can't play the cuss words over the crowd. Don't worry, the crowd's going to fill them in. So we got it there.
Yeah, leave it to the student section.
Yeah, leave it to the student section to fill in all the curse words there on the Mini Men song. So yeah, both going with OU there. I don't know if much else needs to be said on that one. I think the OU defense is probably going to want. They haven't had a shutout in a while. I feel like they're going to be licking they're going to be chomping at the bit for one here. So let's dive into the next matchup we got.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was reading my notes. I was reading my notes on this next one actually because this is it's the game, right? So I got distracted. I'm reading this one. This was my most difficult pick. I would say yes, it's probably my most difficult pick. Man, I'll let you go first on this one because maybe you can convince me of the other side, or unless I don't know who you picked, so you could be picking the same as me, but
so
you might reinforce my pick
for this one, right? A lot of these games, especially this rivalry week, the games.
You're close there.
I
you almost screwed that one up.
Yeah, it almost tongue tied me. So yeah, the game. Ohio State travels to Michigan, playing the Big House. Ohio State is they opened as an 11.5 point favorite. They're currently a 9.5 point favorite. We have an Ohio State team that we haven't really seen play anybody since week 1 when they played Texas. But everybody who they have played, they have continued to just roll through them like a steady machine, slowly trugging their way, looks like, to another national title here. However, they got a matchup against Michigan, who Ryan Day has struggled to beat. Now, this Michigan team, obviously, I saw them earlier in the year, and I've watched them kind of throughout the season. They didn't have it quite figured out on offense, right? Whenever they came to Norman, played against OU there, I believe in like week 2. But one thing that it looks like they have slowly figured out as they've kind of made it through the year, which is understandable when you have a true freshman at quarterback, Bryce Underwood. He's slowly gotten better and better throughout the season. And Michigan's kind of rounded into form. They've slowly been scoring more and more points, and the defense continues to play very well for them. Everybody's going to look back on that loss to USC, where they traveled to USC and lost 31-13. But man, it's tough. I don't know if I can actually sell you on. I have Michigan in this game. I'm picking Michigan in this game, and I don't know if I can give you a good reason why. I think that Michigan may find some success running the football.
I muted myself.
Yeah, I saw you trying to talk. That's why.
Yeah, no, I think it's the rivalry itself. I think that's what has probably brought you back to. Because that's what a lot of these games are. That's kind of what kept bringing me back to Texas. Even though I picked A&M, it was like, man, it was a rivalry week. It's the rivalry. Like these players always seem to elevate themselves to these games, and I think a lot of people were probably picking Michigan just because of the rivalry. Like these guys are going to elevate themselves. So, and mind you, so Michigan, right? Michigan won last year, notably, with basically no quarterback.
Yeah, nothing. This was this a better Michigan team than the one that won last season. Yeah, much better team this year.
And it was a 6 win at the time, Michigan team, 6-5 going into this game. Obviously, they ended up going 7-5 with the win. And you got a 9-2 Michigan team with somebody that's at least, got a pulse at quarterback, and I think Bryce Underwood's pretty good for being a true freshman. The only problem that makes me a little bit more hesitant is, Ohio State has seemingly continued their buzzsawness from last year. But I don't. Did you have anything else on that before I kind of start talking about?
Well, the thing about it is, right, is just it just seems like Ohio State, they haven't even played in a close matchup. Everybody, it seems they beat them either 30 or 40 something to under 14. There's not really a game closer to that. The closest one you could probably point to is when they played Illinois and beat them 34-16, or week 1 whenever they beat Texas 14-7. I think Texas is probably the most comparable defense. I would say I would probably pick the Texas defense, especially at that time, was probably a little bit better than Michigan's defense. But I also don't know if Texas was as complete as, it's just so far of a gap that it's really hard to make that comparison to that Texas team and this Michigan team. But what I can tell you is that Michigan is going to be physical. They are going to be playing with a home crowd. And I'd be interested to see, because this is going to be the most hostile environment we've seen Julian Sayin play in his career. This is it right here. This is about to be the ultimate kind of stage. Now, granted, you could probably make the argument that's going to be any quarterback who comes in and plays in this game. However, it is different whenever you get into these environments. So they may be able to rattle him a little bit and maybe get a mistake out of him. So yeah, I can't completely sell you on. I think Ohio State probably has the 3 best players in the game, with Jeremiah Smith and I forget their other receiver's name off the top of my head.
Carnell Tate.
Yeah, Carnell Tate. They probably have,
and then they still got Caleb Downs on the other side.
Yeah, other side of the ball. Right.
Arguably the first or second, best player in the country, behind Jeremiah Smith or in front of Jeremiah Smith. So
exactly right. So probably the 3 best players on both teams all play on Ohio State. But at the end of the day, it comes down to whether or not you can distribute the ball. I think Bryce Underwood's experience of going in and playing in Norman is going to help him a little bit. Obviously, he's playing at home here, so it's not going to be that big of a deal for him. So I'd be interested to see kind of what we get out of Julian Sayin. Just because it's one of those deals. It's like, yeah, Ohio State's beaten everybody that they played, but we still don't know a lot about this Ohio State team, just because it's like they haven't went through the gauntlet that a lot of the other Big Ten teams have, especially not that a lot of the SEC teams have, or even some of the Big 12 teams. Some of the Big 12 teams have had harder schedules than Ohio State has, at least to this point. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Michigan to get the upset, and also be another one of those teams to make that playoff prediction that playoff picture a little stickier, there around that 12th spot. And maybe I'm wrong. I just went, I said Texas was going to win. I've said Michigan was going to win. I think one of them may win. It might not be both, but one of them may end up pulling off the upset to keep their playoff chances alive here. So with that being said, I'll let you go in.
Yeah, you made a lot of really good points, actually. I guess you didn't even realize it. But my thing, Michigan, the way that I look at this game, Michigan needs to dominate the ground game like they have in the past, basically 4 years that they've won this game, right? They control the ground, they control the clock. That's kind of how they won these last 4 matchups.
Drag them in the mud.
State. Yep, and that's because Ohio State's MO under Ryan Day. Their MO under Brian Hartline, he went from the receivers coach, producing first-round draft pick after first-round draft pick. He's going to produce more first-round draft picks, and now he's the offensive coordinator. The MO is going to be the same, right? So as Michigan, what they're going to want to do on offense. That's what they're good at. They're also good at the ground game too, right? So if you know that they're going to try to control the clock, as Michigan, that Ohio State's going to try to control the clock with their ground game, as well as try to air it out because they can, and they know they can. The best defense is an offense that can keep another offense off the field, right? So with that, Bryce Underwood needs to also have a legacy game. And I'm not saying anything crazy. I'm not saying he's got to go throw for 450 yards and, throw for 5 touchdowns. And, 33 of 41 passing with 450. I'm not saying that. Nothing crazy. But he needs to be a factor in some way in this game. It could be his feet. It could be his arm. Normally, or I guess if this game was being played like midway through the season, I would say you'd want Bryce Underwood's feet to be more of a factor in this game. I added it could be his arm as well because of recently a couple receivers have stepped up as weapons. They've kind of found their footing. Michigan has more or less found, at least a complementary to the run game. They found a pass game that's complementary to it. And I do like, yes, you said Michigan's defense maybe is not as good as who'd you just mention?
Texas.
Texas, when Ohio State played them. Thank you.
Right.
But I do still like Michigan's defense. And you mentioned this too. I don't know how Ohio State's offense looks against a comparable or a comparable competition, because we haven't seen it. And that's not a dig to Ohio State, right? I've said it throughout the whole season that I still think Ohio State's the best team in the country. I say it almost every week. I'm like, oh yeah, they just did what they needed to do and they won. But I think that's credit to Ryan Day as well. It's like, yeah, they knew that they were much further superior to any team that they played, that they just kind of, hey, let's go out there and cover and, go home with a W. But with that being said, it's not a dig. I just, we don't know how they look outside the Texas game week 1. We don't know how they look against a team that's really going to threaten them defensively.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to add real quick.
Yeah.
I remembered it while you were talking there. Jeremiah Smith and Cornell Tate didn't play last week against Rutgers.
I think that's by design, though.
Probably by design. They're probably going to be just fine to go for this game, but just something to kind of make a note of.
Yeah, I think if those two were healthy enough to play and Ryan Day chose to sit them for the playoff and they lose to Michigan, I think people would be calling for Ryan Day's head again. Not saying that's the right thing, but fans. But yeah, so I expect those two to play. I think this Michigan game is for a lot of Ohio State fans the national championship before the national championship, just with how big this game is, and vice versa, right? But my big question is for Michigan's defense is, can they confuse Julian Sayin at all and make him look like a young guy? Because he hasn't this year, but he hasn't needed to. But it seems like throughout this season, Ryan Day's kind of known that. And so it's with the schedule that they've had and realizing that they are so much more elite than everybody else they played. It's kind of like you saw earlier on in the season, Julian saying, let's get his feet wet a little bit. His stats weren't crazy. But then as the season started to progress, he had like back-to-back 300-yard games recently. Like they're starting to get him in that full swing. And so for me, it's like, can Michigan's defense, can the coaching staff, can they scheme up some stunts on the front, the front seven? Can they scheme up a couple things in coverage that cause confusion? Kind of like what Ohio State did to Arch in that first week. They were able to confuse him in the defensive backfield as well as up front. So can Michigan kind of take a play out of the Ohio State playbook and do that to Julian Sayin? We'll see. I think that could be a huge difference. Or has Julian Sayin gotten his feet wet, like I said, and it's like it's too little too late for Michigan? Again, I don't feel good about this pick at all. And to be completely honest with you, I'm going to make my pick right now. But to be completely honest with you, if I'm wrong on this pick, I'm never picking this team again until they win. I am taking Ohio State to win this game. I just think this team is, like I said, they're kind of still that buzzsaw that they were last year. I think they've done everything right up until this point. I mentioned it. I think Ryan Day kind of realized that their schedule, that how much more superior their talent was compared to their schedule. And so they were kind of like slowly easing Julian Sayin in, relying on the run game early on, relying on the defense. And then once they started getting, okay, he's more comfortable, then they started kind of giving him a longer leash. And you've seen it recently. I think they've done a very good job at that. I think, like I said, I don't feel good at all about this pick, but I think that that's kind of where they're at. And I feel pretty good about that part of it. I can't even say if they're going to cover or not, or if Michigan's going to cover, but because I think it goes one of two ways. I think Michigan wins or Ohio State wins this game pretty handily. Not saying a blowout. I just think that it's kind of one of those games like think of like the Texas Vanderbilt game or the Pitt Georgia Tech game, where it's kind of like, yeah, it got close towards the end, but it was like you never felt like they were not going to win that game. So I think it's
I could
either
see it. I could see it like being like an Ohio State like 24-10 win, where it's like, okay, they covered. Ohio State was up most of the time. Michigan wasn't really able to move the ball against what is now statistically the number one defense in the country. I will protest that and say, hey, who have you played? But hey, we'll save that argument for another day, right? But yeah, I could see it, being one of those games where Ohio State's in control. Michigan's not really able to do a bunch against that Ohio State defense, and they don't ask Julian Salen to do too much. He's not having to play hero ball, and just, kind of convincingly win by 2+ scores. That is absolutely in the cards for Ohio State to do. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, that's kind of
no, you're good. That's basically all I was saying. That the only other thing is like, yeah, to that point, it's like it can get really bad really early for Michigan if they allow Ohio State to score early. If Michigan does win this game, it's going to look, I think, a lot similar to last year's game. Very low scoring, just kind of keeping Ohio State off the field, causing mistakes, stuff like that. But yeah, if Ohio State, they get up by 4, maybe even 10, but 14 for sure early on, and they're controlling the game, and you're Bryce Underwood, and you're trying to get your guys back into it. It's like you got to change game plan a little bit. If Ohio State can get to halftime up at least 2 possessions, it's looking pretty good for them. I think that Ohio State is just too good this year, but again, it's the game, it's the rivalry game. You just don't know. I don't feel good about this pick at all, but I'm taking Ohio State. I'm never taking them again if they lose this one until they win again. Just make that clear. But right now, I'm taking Ohio State.
I hear you. I don't blame you on that one. So far you have picked all the favorites.
Yes.
So
I
all the
I did last week as well, and I went 4-1. So
I went 4-1 as well last week, and
yeah,
I picked 2 upsets. So do you? I'll let you. Since
I was gonna say you gave me the honor of talking about the OU game in the recap. So
let me go first.
I'll let you dive into this one first.
Okay. All right. So we got what could be the last time that we're outside of Tennessee's bowl game. This could be one of the last times we're talking about the Volunteers this season. This year, unless something crazy happens, where they manage to work their way and miraculously make the playoffs.
Yeah, based on the ranking, the last college football playoff ranking, it seems like they are to the committee the 3rd best 3-loss team. So it's not looking like a playoff season this year for Tennessee. That's all right, but hopefully they can finish this one strong.
Yeah, finish this one strong. So Tennessee or Vanderbilt at Tennessee, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. No,
yes, this one's played in Neyland.
Played in Neyland. Vanderbilt coming in 14th ranked team, 9-2. Pavia's trying to campaign himself to win a Heisman Trophy, and there's a ton riding on this one for Vanderbilt. And outside of just really just wanting to make sure that they own the state of Tennessee, not much at stake here for the Volunteers. So whenever I'm breaking this one down, right, there's
a lot at stake for Tennessee, but I'll let you finish.
Okay, so there's more at stake than that, I guess. More than owning the state of Tennessee. So we'll let you say what is at stake here for them. So what have we seen from this Tennessee team recently, right? Every team this Tennessee team has played, they've been able to score points. That's kind of how they've lost close games. Their 3 losses are to 3 playoff teams in Georgia, Alabama, and OU. And in the 2 losses to Alabama and OU, you could really point to the turnovers by both Aguilar and some fumbles. That really is what the reason why you'd probably say, hey, that's why we didn't win this game, is because, we had these turnovers. They were critical, and we weren't able to kind of overcome those from setting ourselves back. So in Tennessee, you feel like you pretty much let 2 games get away due to your own mistakes. Now with Vanderbilt, you look at them, they just dominated Kentucky. They got into a close game against Auburn, and then they lost at Texas. Were kind of their last 3 times we saw Vanderbilt, and it's really what kind of put them in this kind of 9-2 spot where they're just outside of the playoff, kind of looking in. And man, this Vanderbilt team, it kind of flows through Pavia. Pavia is their leading rusher. He's their leading passer. I've said all year, my opinion of Vanderbilt has not changed almost at any point this season. I've said that they are good on the offensive side of the ball. They are good on the defensive side of the ball. They are not elite on either side of the ball. And it's kind of shown through their matchups, right? Missouri hasn't they outside of their running game, when I think Zollers came in against the Missouri game. So Vanderbilt won that one 17-10. They got into kind of a game there with Texas. Texas was really actually dominant on that game for the first, I would say, what do you think, 55 minutes? Vanderbilt was good for like that. See what seemed like that last 5 minutes to be able to rally and make that a really close game. But Texas pretty much had that one in hand for the majority of that game. And then they get into the close game with Auburn, who has not been very good this season, at least on the offensive side of the ball. But Vanderbilt was able to score points against a really good Auburn defense. And then they obviously beat Kentucky, which Mark Stoops, hey man, shout out. It's just when I look at this Vanderbilt team, they're good on both sides of the ball. I don't think they're great on either side of the ball. I don't think they're elite on either side of the ball. And I do not think Pavia is the Heisman. So let me get that. Let me get those 3 things out, right? That's been my opinion of Vanderbilt all year, and it hasn't really changed as we went through the season. Tennessee, my opinion of them throughout the season has been that they are elite on the offensive side of the ball, and they are average to good on the defensive side of the ball. It depends on kind of who they're going against.
I would argue they're bad on the defensive side of the ball, but
I mean, yeah, I guess you could make that argument. I just feel like they've played, when they match up against kind of not as good offenses, the defense plays pretty well, but I guess that's kind of to be expected, right? But they did just play really well whenever they just beat Florida 31-11 in the swamp.
3-8 Florida.
It's 3-8 Florida, but that's the same 3-8 Florida. Same 3-8 Florida that
I'm being pessimistic.
Same 3-8 Florida that beat Texas. That is ranked ahead of Tennessee. So
that's a different argument.
It's a different discussion. So, but they do have an elite unit. So I think as long as Tennessee can go, and they obviously have the advantage of they're going to have a hateful 105,000 in Neyland Stadium to help assist that defense.
101,915.
Is it 101? I think it's probably going to.
101.
Who's 105? That is A&M. Is A&M 105?
Something like that. Yeah, 101,915 is Neyland. It used to be 102,455, but then they added that beer deck or whatever. And I will say our AD, he's trying to plan on adding more seats, but it's a whole thing with the fans and construction and stuff. But
it's the opposite of what OU's doing. They just lost 7,000 seats.
I digress. Yeah.
Either way, yeah. So 100 plus thousand. Let me just say that. All right, I don't want to offend any of the volunteer fans by saying that y'all have more seats than what y'all got.
Don't worry, I covered the Tennessee fans' bases there. 101,915.
It's going to be a hateful 100,000 going up for Pavia to face here, and I think the Tennessee offense. I don't think Vanderbilt's going to turn them over. I think they're going to be able to score points against what is a good Vanderbilt defense. But I think, like I said, Tennessee's a lead on the offense side of the ball. I think Aguilar is going to have a really good day. I don't see them beating themselves like they have the past couple games that they have lost. So yeah, give me the Volunteers here. Their keys to the game are going to be protect the ball, don't turn it over. Obviously, that's a huge one here. You don't want to give Pavia extra chances. And, man, rely on the crowd. Hopefully get some stops on third down. Don't let Pavia, kind of do the scramble drill. Just stay in your rush lanes. I know it's been tough for Tennessee to rely on their coverage just because they got some guys hurt in the secondary, which you thought was going to be a strength of this defense kind of going into the year. But, just maintain your rush lanes. Don't don't over pursue on your ends. Allow Pavia to come back through, pick up those third downs, be really good on third down defense, and play really well on the offensive side of the ball. And I just don't think Vanderbilt is going to be able to score with you. So yeah, I would like Tennessee in let's call it a 45-31 game, something along those lines.
So taking us to cover. Interesting.
Taking the balls.
I think we're 2.5 point favorites. Tennessee is.
Yeah, I like them. I like them more than 2.5. I like
Alrighty.
them. I like them 10-ish.
I like the way you think. I like the way you think.
Call me bullish on the Vols, but I'm going with the Vols here to end Diego Pavia's self-proclaimed Heisman campaign, and as well as the Vanderbilt's playoff chances. So, with that being said, I pass the mic to you. What is at stake for the Vols here? Unless there's something that I'm not aware of, please fill me in. What is at stake for the Vols here?
Okay. Well, I guess I'll talk about that first. So you mentioned that what's at stake for Tennessee is just that it's our state, which it is. That's the kind of the big thing. The main thing is that yes, it is still our state, right? It's Tennessee's state. It's not. The state's not called Vanderbilt. The state's called Tennessee. Vanderbilt just resides in it. But the other thing is too, it's like you got Vandy who's trying to get a playoff berth, and we were just in the I'm going to say we a lot during this, but just know that I'm trying so hard not to.
We believe in you.
But so Tennessee, what they're trying to do is they're trying to prevent Vanderbilt from making the playoff. Tennessee was just in the playoff last year. Obviously, that's not going to be the case this year. The last thing Tennessee wants is to, one, lose to Little Brother, and two, allow Little Brother into the playoff because they beat you, right? So that's the big things that are at stake here. You have to prove that you are the state's school, because Pavia obviously prior to the season said that it was Vanderbilt State. They run the state, even though they haven't beat Tennessee in 4, 5, 6 years. So they should. I think the Tennessee players should take that personally. You got a lot of transfer with the transfer portal stuff. It's harder, but Tennessee's got a lot of veteran guys still there, guys that have been there since 2022, 2023. So it means, and based on what Heupel said in the media time that they got, I believe it was yesterday or today, he said this one does mean a lot to these guys. And he said that about the Florida game last week, about winning in the Swamp, and you saw them 31-0 at halftime. Obviously, they took their foot off the gas in the second half and just kind of cruised through. 31-11 was the final. But it seems like when games do really mean, the Alabama game is supposed to mean a lot too, but that one didn't work out the way Tennessee wanted to, and that's fine. But it seems like this one means a lot to them as well, and especially with the stakes it is. And Tennessee's not a bad team. We're not fighting for a bowl game. We know Tennessee knows that they're getting a bowl game, but it's preventing Vanderbilt, a team that claims the state without having actually won in recent history. They should take that personal. I think that's what makes it a big deal for the Tennessee team. Likewise, on the flip side, Vanderbilt, they've been little brother for a very long time. Their record overall against Tennessee is a losing record, and with Clark Lee and Diego Pavia potentially having his final time to beat Tennessee, like they're gonna
not.
Maybe not, but so I'll segue into this though. So this game is the UNC rivalry.
Yeah, the UNC.
So this is the UNC rivalry, and the reason why I say that is because for those who don't know in the audience, so Joey Aguilar, the quarterback for Tennessee, the transfer quarterback, transferred in this offseason after the spring ball, has played pretty well. I'd argue, he's one of 5 Tennessee quarterbacks in history to reach the 3,000 passing yard mark, alongside names such as Peyton Manning, and Hendon Hooker.
I wouldn't put him in that ilk, but yeah.
And so there's only 5 Tennessee quarterbacks to ever reach 3,000 yards. That's Peyton Manning, Tyler Bray, Hendon Hooker, Casey Clausen, I believe. And then I don't remember the 5th one, but yeah, that's a big deal, right?
Big deal.
But Joey Aguilar added himself to Diego Pavia's lawsuit as a plaintiff to basically say that. So they're suing the NCAA, saying that junior college years football played at junior college does not count against your NCAA eligibility. So if Diego Pavia and now Joey Aguilar win that lawsuit, they'll get another year in the NCAA, which Tennessee fans, I think it's 80% support Joey Aguilar, 85 maybe even support Joey Aguilar coming back. I mean, he's solid quarterback. He's shown to be able to throw the deep ball. So yeah, Tennessee fans in for the majority, they support Joey Aguilar coming back. Now, with that being said, I'll go into the keys to the game.
Keys to the game.
So I'll talk about Tennessee's keys to winning this game first. First thing is try to limit the perimeter play and over the middle with the tight end. They have very good, Vandy does have very good perimeter talent, and that tight end's probably a first round talent. They like to throw to him over the middle when they get closer to the red zone or in the red zone, and he's had some success. Another thing, man, you got to keep Arion Carter. Arion Carter's Tennessee's middle linebacker. He just came back from injury last week, had a hell of a game. Keep Arion Carter as the spy on Pavia for all 4 quarters. And I made a note in all caps, do not adjust this for 4 quarters. You got to be able to spy Diego Pavia. Arion Carter's been a spy before. He's been very successful at it with running quarterbacks. Get Vandy to 3rd and long and get off the field. That's been a big struggle of Tennessee's on defense this year. Is they can get some teams to 3rd and long, but man, they always convert, and then they're still on the field. They're still on the field. You can't get that quick offense back on the field, and you start controlling the game with the rhythm of the offense that Heupel so loves to run. Offensive keys for Tennessee: a mistake-free game from Aguilar. You kind of mentioned it. Fast, decisive game like Heupel. Heupel's going to draw up for him. You saw it against Florida. They started hot and stayed hot in the first half, and then they were able to kind of ease off with a subpar Florida team. You're going to have to keep doing it for 4 quarters against Vandy because Vandy's going to score points.
And they've shown they can rally, right? We saw what they did against Texas. Even though you dominate them for 55 minutes of the game, if you got to keep your foot on the gas, you got to stay in the game, or else Vanderbilt has shown the ability to rally and make the game close.
Exactly, and Tennessee has allowed teams to rally. See the Arkansas game. Tennessee was up 34-17. They ended up winning that game 34-31 against Arkansas, who's probably going to be 2-10 this year. They have a very good offense. They've had some heartbreaking losses, but still 2-10, right? So they've allowed teams to get back into it. Vandy likes to get back into it if they're down. So, yeah, you got to play mistake-free football for Aguilar in the pass game. Hold on to the ball when you're in the backfield. Fast, decisive game. Heupel's, he's going to draw it up. He draws it up pretty successfully for most of these games. Another thing, attack the ground game early. Find out early on if you can establish the run game. Because if you can rely on the run game early on and you know that that's a strength in this game, it can set up the big plays from Aguilar to Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, and Brazel later on in the game, right? You can take advantage of that deep ball. We know Joey Aguilar, based on the season, does have that deep ball, which Tennessee lacked last season.
Big time lack last season.
Yeah. And finally for Tennessee, get on the board early and often. That kind of goes into the last couple things I talked about, but because those things would, if you do those things right, that'll happen. But get on the board early and often. Go up, set it, because if it is a shootout, if you're going 7-0, 7-7, 14-7, 14-14, you want to get on the board early and often, even if they are scoring. If they're not scoring, even better. But hold on to that.
And it gets the crowd into it, especially when you go up, score early. Like the crowd's going to get
Right.
Not that the crowd needs any motivation. I'm not saying that. It's just, the crowd after a offensive score is much louder on that first little defensive possession right there. And gets a little bit of buy-in from the crowd there.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, right? So when you're on the road, and I made a note of this, we saw how effective how effective it was for Tennessee to get on the board early and often against Florida. Now they were away and it shut down that crowd almost immediately. Vice versa to that, if you keep doing it, that crowd's going to be juiced the whole time. And I know more than most people, but that Tennessee crowd, they will stay juiced for 4 quarters if you let them. And that poses a huge issue for Vanderbilt's offense. But yeah, the only other thing about that, yeah, it sucks the life out of the opposing team pretty early on if you're able to do that.
Mhm.
So Vanderbilt's keys to winning this game. In this game, with a defense that is seemingly subpar as Tennessee's, Diego Pavia has a huge opportunity to play some hero ball, and he doesn't even have to play hero ball like in the sense of it being tough for him. Like this could be a pretty easy game for him to play hero ball. He's got to dominate those broken plays that are inevitable. Like broken plays are going to happen in this game on both
Yeah.
sides, so he has to take advantage of those and win on those. Every game has these plays, so you know they're going to happen. Can he take advantage of them? That's what I mean, I guess, when it comes to playing hero ball, especially late if it's close. Vice versa to what I said about Tennessee's keys: minimize third and long and maximize third and manageable. If Vanderbilt can maximize third and manageable, it actually opens up that design QB run game that they do love to utilize Diego Pavia in. And if you have third and manageable, third and 4, even third and 5, third and 3, and you can stay on the field, that's going to exhaust that Tennessee defense. It has happened this year. It has caused a lot of issues for that defense. On the defensive side for Vanderbilt, got to get to Joey. Got to get to Joey Aguilar early and often. If they can do that, they can then focus on trying to stop the run game because Tennessee won't have time to drop back and throw the deep ball. They then focus on the run game, and then if you stop Tennessee's run game as well as their pass game, I mean it's a long night for Tennessee in their home stadium, and I know Vandy and company would love nothing more to do it in Neyland.
Yeah, they'd go plant a flag.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, that'd probably be a flag plant, and my TV might have a hole in it. But but no, I mean no. Overall, I think with mistake free football on both sides, this game could very well end up in a shootout. You saw it, again, Vanderbilt and Auburn, which Auburn, it was a very unlikely opponent to have a shootout with them, but nonetheless it happened, and Vanderbilt came out on top on that one. But my thing is, I don't see Tennessee losing another close shootout in Neyland. And they seem motivated to control the state for another year. And
I think they want to. I mean, it's obviously like a lot of their big games this year, they've come up short. And probably what are their 3 biggest games against Georgia, against Alabama, against OU? They come up short. So I think part of it is, hey, we want to win. We want to win one of these big games, and this is another big opportunity.
yeah, and I'll go back because I actually missed one of my points that I did want to say. I kind of already gave my pick, but my last key for Vanderbilt, I did want to mention this one. So and this is now, after saying it, this sounds like an obvious thing, but you don't want to let anything over the top on the defensive side, right? Tennessee's going to want to beat you deep. They're going to try to beat you deep.
They're going to take the shot.
Yes, they're going to. That's another inevitable thing, right? And if they find that weakness deep, they're going to attack it. And then I made a note, see Kentucky game, right? It was just bomb after bomb after bomb against Kentucky. Take it with a grain of salt. It's Kentucky, but still, they found the weakness and they attacked it. So don't let anything over the top. But again, with that being said, I don't see Tennessee losing another close shootout in Neyland specifically. They seem motivated, like I said, and they want to run the state again. But I think the big thing really comes down to, with it being the rivalry and Vandy being so close to the playoff, they're going to want to try to ruin Vandy's playoff hopes. So give me the Vols.
Both going with the balls there to get the win. It's not necessarily an upset. It depends if you're, for rankings wise, it's an upset. For spread wise, not an upset. But
I believe it's the only. I believe it's the only ranked on ranked game. Someone can fact check me, but I believe it's the only ranked on ranked game where the higher ranked team is not favored this week.
yeah, that would seem appropriate. So yeah, at least for the games we've covered. So fact check him, hit us in the comments. Let's go back through real quick. So just because we had a pretty long episode there, we told y'all it was going to be a lot. Monty even said it. It said, hey, the recap episode last week was a little short. Preview's a little long here, but go back through Georgia Tech, both going with Georgia. Texas A&M versus Texas in the Lone Star Showdown. Monty's going with A&M. I'm taking Texas. OU versus LSU, both going with OU. Ohio State, Michigan. Monty's taking Ohio State. I'm going to go with Michigan. I guess I'm predicting a lot of upsets this week. Is really what it boils down to.
This is when they happen, though. This is when they happen. So.
And then Tennessee, Vanderbilt, we're both going with the Vols. So,
yeah, and it's so I was able to look real quick. So the only other game, which we didn't talk about this one, but the only other game now after the new rankings, number 25 Arizona is favored by 1.5 against number 20 Arizona State.
That's interesting.
That's after the new ranking. So
yeah, that's interesting. So, that being said, Monty, you got anything else for the rivalry
on the road
week?
too? No, that's it, man. I'm excited to see these games. Like I said, nervous as hell for a lot of them. Not just the Tennessee game for obvious reasons. Just it's going to be a fun weekend. I'm sure there's bound to be an upset. That there always is.
Kind of what I'm banking on.
I think, like I said, I think I picked all the favorites, but I'm not shocked if I'm wrong on at least one, if not a couple. So
it's all right. You went 4-1 last week. 4-1 ain't bad. You'll take it again. As always, man, thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for hanging out, spending an hour with us, letting us have an hour of your time. As always, subscribe to the show, subscribe to it on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, follow us there. Follow us on our social medias, interact with us, comment with us. We're always down. Even if you hate our takes, we're fine with that too.
Tell us that you hate them.
There's probably some of y'all's takes that we hate. So, it kind of is what it is. But yeah, tell your friends about the show. Let them know. Spread it word of mouth. But we just can't thank y'all enough for tuning in and allowing us to continue to keep doing this. Because, like I said, we're doing it for kind of the fun of it, the joy of it. We do really enjoy it. Monty, you got anything as we head out?
No, I mean, just to reiterate what you said. Yeah, we do really enjoy doing this. It is, we like doing the notes. We like talking about these games. We like hearing from y'all because I've always been one of those people. You think you have a good take until somebody's like, "Well, that takes a bunch of BS." So,
yeah.
So we like doing it. We like hearing what people think about our take because we like to think that we got some pretty reasonable stuff on our minds. But we thank everybody for chiming in and at least listening to us with our takes. So,
as always, man. We thank y'all for tuning in, and we will catch y'all next week for a conference or a rivalry week. Rivalry week recap.
It almost got you there.
Recap episode. We will catch y'all then. As always, y'all be safe. Enjoy the games this weekend. Peace.